Alan Shields here, Chief of Police for the town. We're 10-8 in service, which means we're here to make people's lives better, and we do that by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of the people we serve. Thank you for joining us. This is a live show, so if you have a question, go ahead and ask it in the chat, and we'll try to get to it during the show. If we can't get to it during the show, we'll get it to it afterwards in the chat. As always, I want you to download the FEMA All Hazards Guide, the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide. Make sure you sign up for our CWS, our Community Warning System, through the Office of the Sheriff, and visit PG&E's website for information on how to be prepared for these power outages. We're starting to get into some of these PSPS alerts. I know there's one going now. It looks like, and that was due to the wind event. This current one, though, it looked like there were 5 locations not in the incorporated area of Danville that were affected. And you can get good information through the PG&E website on areas that may be affected. All right, so I want to cover one thing real quick before we get going. We're going to talk about the new chief, and we'll talk about crime and all that. But we just had an election, which is why I'm moving the show earlier today. So on election nights, when it's on a Tuesday, the election nights, the city council or the town council moves their meeting to Wednesday night. So in order for me to attend that meeting, I had to back this up a little bit. But it always reminds me of something that I think is very important to stress to everyone in the community. And that has to do with political actions and your police department. Now, we have a policy that's very specific that says officers and deputies, essentially, that work for the sheriff will not engage in political activities while in uniform. And we're very strict about that. The whole purpose is everyone in the community, whether you vote for one side or the other, whether you vote for certain propositions, that means nothing to us when it comes to serving the community. It's important that everyone knows it doesn't matter what side of a political aisle you're on. If you raise your hand and say, help me, you need to know, and I will affirm this tonight, your police department will come and help you, period. That is one of the easiest parts about being a police officer. It's not like in some businesses where you have to fill out a credit application before we let you test ride that car. You know, we have to determine your worthiness if we're going to do business with you. That isn't how police work works. And frankly, that's what makes our job incredibly easy, is we get to serve everyone without favor, without bias. It's really easy. Someone raises their hand and says, help me, we go and help. It's that simple. So on the day after the election, I thought it proper to remind everyone of that so that all of you know what our commitment is to the community and that we don't do the taking sides thing. We're here for everybody. All right. If you saw on Facebook and Instagram, there is a new chief in town. In fact, if you want to meet him, he'll be at our council meeting tonight in about a half an hour. It starts at 5 o'clock. Our town manager is going to introduce the new chief to the council, but I wanted to take a little bit of time, and I'll tell you a little bit about him. All right, so I am retiring. That's me on the left. That's Tom Rosberg on the right, and he has been with the sheriff's office for 20 years. He is, and I'm just showing you some of the pictures because he has worked in Danville before, and so this is him with his patrol team in the upper left. He is the canine officer. He was our canine officer for several years. He worked in Danville from 2011 to about 2015 when he was promoted to sergeant. And then he worked other areas of the county. He's worked at our city of Lafayette, so he's actually got municipal experience there as a supervisor. He's also worked our Office of Emergency Services, and he's done a lot of good things throughout the community, but he's got a diverse level of experience that he brings to the town. But I thought it was important, this picture on the bottom there, let me zoom in a little bit. That's him with some of our Cub Scouts. I think those kids are probably 20 years old now, but that's him with our Cub Scouts, and he has been one of our very big proponents early on of community outreach. And we can't do what we do if we don't share a connection with all of you, right? It goes back to the Pelian principles you watched at the beginning of the show. I think number 7 is the people are the police and the police are the people, essentially meaning we all share the same responsibility. And Tom Rosberg, the new chief, knows that very well. So as far as the transition, I will be retiring at the end of the year. Tom will be starting at the beginning of the year. So January 1st will be his first day as chief. And I am sure he will do well. And I know the way Danville is as a community will welcome him as you all did me my first day. All right, let's move on to crime. You can go to communitycrimeapp.com. You can download this information anytime you want. We upload there several times a day. You can also set to get alerts, and you can get sexual offender registry information there as well. October 28th through November 3rd, traffic accidents. We had 1 injury, 2 property, and 1 hit and run. Notice the theme here, though. Van into a parking structure in the parking lot of Diablo Vista Middle School. Minor injury to the driver. That was on the 28th. On the 29th, hit and run of a parked car in the clock tower parking lot. No injury. On the 31st, we had a vehicle into a gate at an apartment complex parking lot on Diablo Road. And then on the 31st, we had property damage collision in the Costco parking lot. I don't know what to say about these. Parking lots are really wreaking havoc this week. Interesting little tidbit, though. Oftentimes in the sheriff's office, we will analyze our collisions, and we try to determine what are the most prevalent collisions, where are they occurring. And it was interesting. There was a year period of time where it was, I did a quick analysis, and I think 60% of the collisions that were reported were for backing. And so they were low speed collisions. And then another larger percentage of them was another section of low speed collisions. So most of the collisions that occurred were similar to this. It was low speed collisions, typically like we saw last week, in areas where people are probably familiar with. Maybe they get a little complacent and they get into a fender bender. So when I see this, what it tells me is to remind everyone, even when we're close to home, when we're in our parking lots, to please pay attention and make sure you look out for other cars and people. All right, crime. October 28th through November 3rd, we had 1 burglary, 4 thefts. That's about, as far as the number of crimes, that's a little lower than our weekly average, and there were no violent crimes, which is great. On the 28th, we were notified of a package theft that occurred on the 15th, so a couple weeks prior. And that was on the 1200 block of Camino Sahara. On the 31st, there was a theft by fraud, and this was a bank wire transfer. And I'm going to talk about that because there's a tip there too, and that was on Los Robles Court. On the 1st, there was a property that was stolen from the 500 block of Harts Avenue, and this was a window smash. So this was a business where they had the window smashed, and they had some property taken from inside the business. On the 1st, there was theft of more property from an unlocked vehicle, and this was on Center Way near Crow Canyon Road, and this occurred in the overnight hours. On the 3rd, there was theft of merchandise from the Safeway on Camino Sahara, and that was at 8:32, and this time it wasn't alcohol, so this was different merchandise. It seemed like for about a month and a half period of time, every store we had was getting hit by alcohol thieves. And if you remember, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I reported on a series of 4 arrests, 4 different incidents that resulted in arrests of several people for organized retail theft, and a lot of that was alcohol. So we're hoping that our attacking or being assertive with the motivated offender, part of that crime triangle, is going to be effective on that. All right. The theft by fraud. And if you remember, we've talked about it, and we'll do a segment next week, but we've talked about it before, that people who will perpetrate fraud by false pretense, in other words, they will manufacture a scenario, they usually need to do 2 things in order to make that happen. And the first thing they need to do is they need to lie or in some way create a sense of legitimacy. Sometimes they may even pretend to be the police, right? And sometimes they may pretend to be a granddaughter or a grandson that's maybe in jail. Sometimes there'll be an institution. Hey, it's the California State Lottery. You've won. The other thing they have to do is they have to create a sense of urgency. Now, I hope I'm not offending our car salesmen out there, but it's kind of like when you walk into the car dealership and it's like, you know, they throw down the paper, the little 4 square, and they say, what can I do to get you in this car today, right? They want that sense of urgency. They want you to sign today. So what they'll do, in the case of pretending to be the police, they'll usually say, hey, you know, and they'll actually go to our website and they'll use a legitimate name, and they'll say, hey, I'm Sergeant so-and-so from the Danville Police Department. You have a warrant for your arrest. If you don't pay X number of dollars, we're going to come arrest you, right? If it's the lottery, hey, you've won the lottery. If you pay the taxes on it today, we'll send you the check. If not, it's going to roll to the next person, right? So legitimacy and urgency. If it's pretending to be a relative, a grandson, granddaughter, hey, I'm grandson so-and-so, I'm locked in jail, I need X number of dollars right now, or they're going to keep me in jail, right? Legitimacy and urgency. So how do you combat that? What we recommend is hang up, go right back to the source. So if someone calls pretending, in this case, if someone calls to pretend to be your bank, say, thank you for letting me know of the fraud. I will call you directly. Hang it up, call your bank using the number you know to be legitimate, right? If it is the police department, someone pretends to be the police department, says, hey, you've got a warrant for your arrest, pay us right now. Thank you. I will call the police department directly. Click, hang the phone up, call us directly. If it's someone pretending to be grandson or granddaughter, thank you. I will call you right back. Call your son or daughter. Call a trusted relative that can help you sort that out. What we do say, though, is not to act urgently. There isn't a police agency that is going to require you to act urgently. Banks will typically not require you to act urgently. They just want you to clear up whatever it is. So we have had legitimate ones. I think we had one at my house where our credit card, there was a fraud alert. So we had to get issued a new credit card. Our internet bill was paid using that credit card. And my wife had gotten a text message on her phone saying, if you don't pay, your internet's going to get shut off, right? So they were Comcast and they created a sense of urgency. Well, we didn't reply in the text. We just went to Comcast Direct, checked on the bill. They said, yeah, your credit card has been declined. And so we gave them the new credit card and all was good. So even though we felt like it may have been legitimate because we knew we had credit card issues, we still went back and followed it. We still didn't click through the link. So always remember to check your source. And anytime you get a call or anything that seems suspicious, you can always just call us and we'll help you sort it out. So if you don't know who to call, if you're not sure which number at your bank, if you're not sure which agency to call, if you don't have that trusted relative, you can always call us and we'll help you sort it out. All right, let's go over some of the arrests that were made. All right, again, October 28th through November 3rd. On the 31st, a man was cited for DUI, and this was interesting. This is after a county deputy stopped him for speeding on southbound 680, and the stop was made near the El Pintado off-ramp. On the 31st, a woman was booked for driving a stolen vehicle after she was stopped for vehicle code violations on San Ramon Valley Boulevard near El Cerro, so kind of at the bottom of the hill here. And on the 1st, a man was booked for trespassing. This was after he refused to leave a business on Boone Court. Now, we've talked about some of this before. The typical process when a misdemeanor has been committed and officers make an arrest, the default is actually to issue a citation, a notice to appear. There are some exceptions. Now, in the case of the person that was trespassing, the obvious exception that we use is if we believe the offense is likely to continue, then we book the person in jail. Well, typically in order to arrest someone for trespassing, they have to be advised that they are trespassing in order to leave and then refuse to leave. Once they refuse to leave, then we arrest them and then we take them to jail because clearly if they're refusing to leave, it's likely that if we just issue them a citation, they will reoffend and go back into that location. On the kind of an interesting thing here, it sounds, if you're not familiar with it, it may sound a little silly. Why is a county deputy calling a Danville, essentially a deputy, to finish a DUI arrest? And that has to do with jurisdiction and who's responsible for what. So our deputies that work in the county, their responsibility is for criminal acts, not vehicle code. So no on the DUIs. If your car gets stolen in the county, that's not a deputy sheriff that's usually going to respond to that. And they don't do speeding and traffic typically unless there's a unique agreement there. So in this case, the deputy saw someone that was speeding, made the stop on that, and then once they determined that there were objective signs of intoxication, they called for an outside source to come and finish the DUI investigation. In that case, it was one of the Danville officers. They went up there and did it. It's a very common occurrence within sheriff's office jurisdiction when they find someone on a stop that is appears to have been driving under the influence. They'll typically call CHP, maybe one of our local contract cities or a local police agency, and they'll come and finish that stop. And so that's kind of the interesting fact on that. And that's why you would get a county deputy turning over that investigation to one of our officers. All right. I'm going to look and see if there's any questions. So Sue has a question. Sue, have you been hearing gunshots in the late night recently? Sue, honestly, I have not. And I know we live about 4 houses down from one another, but I haven't heard them, but also I'm an early sleeper. I usually go to bed pretty early. What we would recommend that you do is if you hear something that sounds like gunshots, fireworks, often they're hard to distinguish from one another. We just recommend that you call the police and say, hey, because both of them are hazardous, right? We just ask that you call us and say, I'm hearing what sounds like gunshots in this area. I'm hearing what sounds like fireworks in that area, or I can see the fireworks going off, because it's important for our officers to get out there. Now, just kind of play it out, and Sue, you did call. So perfect. So Sue's, and Sue, I think this is just because that's who Sue is. She would call, but Sue also is a graduate of our Citizens Academy, which is taking place later tonight. But Sue, that's perfect. What it does is, if there is some sort of like violence or hazardous issue, it's important to get officers in the area so that it keeps it from escalating. If it's fireworks, again, we want officers in the area because we don't want fireworks going off. We don't want the hillsides catching fire. We don't want someone's house catching fire. Very hard sometimes to catch the fireworks that are happening. But if we do find them, we will cite the people that are setting them off. All right. Let me see here. Let me scroll back up. So Dan says, I'm seeing an increasing number of cars with no front license plate. Is there any enforcement of the front plate requirement? So Dan, there are a lot of sections in the vehicle code. And what our traffic enforcement team does is they focus on those violations that are likely to cause collisions. Now, does that mean that we don't stop for no front plate? We absolutely do. We do. What I'm saying is if I'm going to send the officers out there to enforce traffic laws, the highest priority is going to be for those violations, those behaviors that are likely to cause collisions. And I really want them focusing on that. What I would not want to see is one of my traffic officers coming back in with a stack of citations, all for no front plate and no speeding and no stop sign and no stoplight violations, right? Because that's what we know are the primary collision factors. That's what we know are causing our collisions. So I need them focusing on that. It doesn't mean that they ignore it. And in fact, this question came up today, and I was talking to one of the motor officers because we had someone come in looking to get a ticket signed off. And so I asked, I'm like, are you all citing for no front plate? And the answer was, yeah, we do cite for no front plate. Typically, if it's in conjunction with another stop, like speeding or stop sign, but they will occasionally also stop solely for no front plate. So great question, Dan. It's not something we primarily look for, but it is something that does tend to get scooped up as we're doing our enforcement. So Daryl, leadership San Ramon Valley, class of 2014, best class ever, right? So I was in leadership San Ramon Valley with Daryl, and he has a comment question. It says, Town and myself had a great relationship with you. How do you suggest we establish the same relationship with the new chief? Daryl, great question. And that is exactly what my focus is with the new chief. And that is telling him to be very assertive in reaching out to various community groups and getting out and being present as much as possible. The easiest and most often overlooked part of leadership is to simply be present. And Tom is very good at that. He's a very extroverted person, very social. He really understands law enforcement, which is kind of the backbone of what he needs to be able to do as chief. But I think we're getting a good benefit in that he is one of those type of leaders that is very present. And so on your side, Daryl, what I'd say is if you have a group and my promise is if you invite me to your house, your HOA, your faith group, your business group, I will come so long as I'm available. If I'm on vacation with my wife, not available. But if I'm here, I will come. So my request to you is if you have an opportunity where you would like to meet the chief, you can send me an email. You can send the new chief an email and just say, hey, I belong to the ABC group. We meet Tuesdays at 4:00. We'd love to have you come over. And I'm sure he would love to introduce himself and talk about what it is we're doing from the police department standpoint to deliver services to the town. And it would be a great way to meet the new chief and start working on that relationship. Laurel, aloha, chief. Now you'll have time to come see the whales. That's Laurel. That's right. We'll have a little more vacation time. John, appreciate it. Thank you. Kim says we all need to go to the town hall in December and give the chief a big thank you. Thanks, Kim. And then Sue, hopefully you're not moving. I'm not moving anywhere, Sue. We love Danville. It's kind of and this is a little bit of a personal but fun fact. I think as people transition at different points in their lives, they think about where they should physically land. And frankly, I can't think of a better place than Danville. Danville is a very thoughtful, well-planned community. And I really will point to our fire district. If you have some type of medical emergency and you need immediate help, our fire district is literally one of the best in the nation at keeping people alive. So you just can't beat it. And with neighbors like you, Sue, how can you beat the community of Danville, right? Okay, so I actually have to go because I'm going to get to the town council meeting. But as a reminder, I want you to download the Contra Costa County Residents Guide to Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation, the FEMA All Hazards Checklist. Make sure you sign up for the CWS through the Sheriff's Office and go to that PG&E website. I'm going to go so I can go to the council meeting and welcome our new chief. He's going to be introduced tonight in about 20 minutes to the council. You're more than welcome to come down there and say hi to the new chief. With that, we're 10:10, which means we're off duty, but we're always 10:08 in service to all of you. Have a good night, Danville.